Hi, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes of STEAM with Miss Kathy from Shaler, North Hills Library, and our sometimes guest, Zeus. So, who are we doing this week? Well, this week is still Women's History Month in the month of March, and we are doing another space pioneer, but not a modern day one. We are doing Caroline's Comets, a true story. So let's see about this woman called Caroline. Book is written by Emily Arnold McCulley. And there is a comet shooting through the air and a girl down trying to observe it. So I don't know if you've ever seen a comet, but they are huge balls of gas floating through the air at high speeds, and they leave this tail on them that make them especially spectacular to look at. Let's go to the first page here. To get the book so it's a good spot for you to see. Caroline Herschel's father was the first to show her the stars. Caroline wrote about it in her autobiography, and any of the text that's in this italics is her actual writings from her diaries. I remember his taking me on a clear frosty night into the street to make me acquainted with several of the most beautiful constellations after we had been gazing at a comet which was then visible. Caroline was born in 1750 in Hanover. That would be Germany. Though the people in Hanover spoke German, that region was then ruled by the King of England. Today we know as Hanover as being in Germany. Caroline's father and brothers were all royal musicians, but her mother thought girls should be taught more practical skills, so Caroline learned to knit. And this is her writing again. From that day forward, I was fully employed in providing my brothers with stockings. See if we can get the picture a little better here. She was also the family's scullery maid. And there she's shown knitting. Caroline caught typhus when she was 10, and when she recovered, she got smallpox. So those are two very serious diseases that we don't get too much anymore because we have vaccinations against them. The first stunted her growth, and the second scarred her face. Smallpox is kind of like chickenpox, but it leaves permanent scars on your face. It's more severe. Her father worried that no man would marry her. How would she live without a husband to support her? Of all her siblings, Caroline loved William the most. The 7 Years' War was raging, and William would be called to fight. To avoid it, he left for England to make a living conducting a chorus and giving piano lessons. Caroline longed for him, so she misses him. She writes, "In short, there was no one who cared much about me." The one person who did is gone. By the time Caroline was 22 years old, it seemed nothing good would ever happen. Out of the blue, William invited her to England, where he had become a successful musician. He would teach Caroline to sing so she could perform with his chorus and earn her own living. After William paid for a maid to replace Caroline, her family grudgingly let her go. William came to fetch her. Before she left, she knitted enough stockings to last her family for 2 years. So they couldn't say, "Hey, you can't go or don't have stockings." The Journey by Coach ferry and packet boat took 12 days. So various ways they had to travel to get to where they were going. In Bath, that's a city in England, Caroline settled into her new life, struggling with the English language and customs because she had always spoken German. William coached her, and before long, Caroline became a popular soprano, that would be a singer, and for the first time earned her own money. As William also needed a housekeeper, she became that too. And this is her writing. By way of relaxation, we talked of astronomy and the bright constellations with which I had made acquaintance during the fine nights we spent on the post wagon traveling through Holland. William wondered what lay beyond the Earth's solar system. Were there other solar systems? How did stars form? How far away were they? Was there life on planets or stars? On the moon? To find the answers, William read about how to build a telescope. He wanted to build a better telescope than any that had ever existed. He couldn't do it unless Caroline helped. Of course she would. Caroline became an assistant inventor. Excuse me. Every room in their house was a workshop. Even the piano was buried under globes, orreries, tools, maps, books, lenses, and a huge machine for grinding glass. Building a telescope made housekeeping difficult, but Caroline was fascinated. William first tried to make his telescope with a glass lens, but it was impossible to make a lens that would be large enough to obtain clear images of the sky. So he made his telescope with a mirror instead of a lens. At the time, mirrors were made out of metal. William built a furnace to melt tin and brass for the mirror, and then fired the mirror in a mold. The mold had to be made of dried horse manure. Caroline's job was to pound and sift the manure by hand. And this is her writing. It was an endless piece of work and served me for many an hour's exercise. So, horse manure, if you don't know what that is basically horse poop. So it's not very clean or stinky. I mean, it is very stinky. After the mirror was fired, it had to be polished with pitch to make it concave. That's like tar. William couldn't pause even for a minute, or the mirror would mist over and be ruined. While William doggedly polished, sometimes for 16 hours straight, Caroline took care of William's needs. And she's shown spooning some food into him. And writes, I was constantly obliged to feed him by putting victuals by bits into his mouth, and victuals means food. She read to him too. It's a lot of polishing. A lot of stars. Their first telescope was 5 feet long with a 6-inch mirror that magnified 6,000 times. William would look through the telescope and call out his observations, and Caroline wrote them down. They discovered that the great blurry disk of light called the Milky Way was made of millions of stars. No one knew that before then. Theirs was the best telescope in the world. They used it as often as possible, no matter what the weather. In the winter, Caroline's ink froze, and she's trying to write the notes. On March 13th, 1781, William saw something new. It might be a planet, but no new planet had been discovered for thousands of years. It was a planet. Word of the planet Uranus circulated around the world and made William famous. It started a rage for astronomy, too. Imagine that, no planet for thousands of years, and her brother discovered one. And she was right there with him, helping him to the end. As excited, King George III and his family visited the Herschels and ordered 4 telescopes from William. King George appointed William king's astronomer and paid him an annual salary. His music career ended. That meant Caroline's income from singing ended too. Caroline was glad for William, but worried for herself. She had been so proud of the money that she earned. William needed Caroline's help more than ever. He began a sweep of the sky, section by section. To do it, he made a 20-foot telescope. William had to perch high in the air on rickety scaffolding, often in strong winds. Once, as he was climbing down, the whole apparatus collapsed. William was nearly crushed. Ah! Another time, Caroline ran in the snow, slipped, and fell. This is her writing. At each end of the machine or trough was an iron hook, such as butchers use for hanging their joints upon, and having to run in the dark on ground covered a foot deep with melting snow, I fell on one of these hooks, which entered my right leg above the knee. My brothers call, "Make haste!" I could only answer by a pitiful cry, "I am hooked!" There she is laying at the bottom, and he's calling, "Hurry up!" Caroline pulled the hook out of her leg herself. She continued to work on their star catalog while her wound healed. William made a small telescope for Caroline. He taught her math so she could calculate the position of the stars. Her writing, I found I was to be trained for an assistant astronomer. I was to sweep for comets. Caroline always did whatever her brother asked. In 1783, Caroline discovered 14 previously unknown nebulae and star clusters and 2 new galaxies. That's pretty good all in 1 year. All this time, Caroline also did needlework and sewing, kept William's accounts, and cleaned all the equipment. In 1786, that would be 3 years later, William went to visit astronomers around Europe. Left by herself, Caroline promptly discovered a comet. Her writing, last night, December 21st, at 7:45, I discovered a comet. This morning, between 5 and 6, I saw it again. It was called the Ladies' Comet, and it made Caroline famous. She was the second Herschel to amaze the world. In 1788, William announced he would marry. Caroline tried not to show her sadness. William no longer needed Caroline to be his housekeeper, so William offered to pay her as his assistant. Caroline refused. She wanted a salary from the king, like William's. King George agreed, and Caroline Herschel became the first professional woman scientist. While working for the king, Caroline discovered 7 more comets. Her celebrity spread even farther and caused a worldwide enthusiasm for comets. Caroline Herschel has been known ever since as the hunter of comets. But she missed her brother William very much because she loved being with him, and then he got married and she wasn't with him all the time anymore. And then there's some notes in the back. The Astronomer Royal said of the Herschels, William and Caroline, which was the planet and which was the moon. They were true collaborators, making astronomy a modern science with their rigorous observations and calculations. They found 2,500 nebulae, as well as all of Caroline's comets, and William's planet, and much else. The catalog of the sky that Caroline Herschel created became a standard reference work for succeeding astronomers. That means ones that come after. When William died in 1822, Caroline was grief-stricken. With no reason to remain in England, she moved back to Hanover. Her fame followed her. She was admired and consulted by scientists for the rest of her 98 years, so she lived to be 98 years old. Caroline Herschel was made an honorary Fellow of England's Royal Astronomical Society and awarded its gold medal. Caroline died in 1848 and was buried with a lock of William's hair. Means a piece of his hair. Caroline's outspoken autobiography, that means a book she wrote about herself and her life, tells of the trials of her childhood and her love for William and astronomy. It makes her prickly personality vivid for us centuries later. And I would like to go over some of these glossary words. That means it's a little mini dictionary in the back of the book, because some of them, I'm sure you weren't familiar with what they were. It says they found 2,500 nebulae. Nebulae are clouds of dust and gases in space. In the Herschel's time, galaxies were thought to be nebulae, but they really aren't. One of the tools that she said, back when I was listing off the tools of their trade, even the piano was buried under globes, orreries, tools, maps, books, lenses, and a huge machine for grinding glass. Orreries was a very strange word that I wasn't even familiar with, but an orrery is a model of the solar system. So if you have a model of the solar system, you can impress everyone and call it an orrery. A packet boat is a small vessel carrying mail, passengers, and some freight. They used that when they were describing how she got to England, probably in a packet boat that looked like that, on a large vessel. Pitch is a black substance derived from coal tar. We said he used that making the lens. Scullery means a workroom off a kitchen for washing dishes and clothes, ironing, and similar jobs. It said that she was her family's scullery maid. So she would be basically their maid and work in the kitchen and around the house, keeping it clean. When you sweep the sky, that means you are examining it section by section with a telescope, moving over a little at a time and recording what you see in each section. Typhus, again, was a highly infectious bacterial disease that raged in epidemics for centuries. So we are suffering a pandemic right now. That was an epidemic. Its cause wasn't discovered until 1916. And now we don't really have it around anymore. In rituals, we said, referred to food. So the timeline, the earliest working telescope appeared in 1608. Hans Lippershey is given credit for its invention, though others have also claimed to have discovered it. If you've ever heard of Galileo, he was around in 1564 to 1642, and in 1609 he was the first to examine the sky with a telescope. Before that, people used telescopes to see long distances on Earth, never up in the sky. He could make out a ribbon of light that was the Milky Way and craters on the moon, which we take for granted now that we know are there, but no one knew that back then. William was born in 1738, and Caroline was born very close to today, assuming you are watching this around the middle of March, on March 16th in 1750. And then William died in 1822, and she lived a little over 20 years longer than him. She died in 1848. In 2009 to 2013, the orbiting Herschel Space Observatory sends infrared images from deep in the universe. It was named for William Herschel to honor his discovery in 1800 of infrared wavelengths invisible to the human eye. That's a whole other topic we're not going to get into right now. But they had a major space observatory named after him. Okay, so let's look at our packet and some of the activities to do along with Caroline's comet. Hopefully you had a chance to print these out. The first one is you can learn about her a little bit more at this site for kids, and then there are pages you can go to off of that page, and there is a Herschel Museum of Astronomy, actually over in England, and you can go to this page in there, and I think we have the printouts for them right here. You can make Caroline's comet. It tells you a little bit more about who she was, what comets are, fun facts about comets, and then it tells you how to make a comet. And I did that. This was one of the easiest crafts. If you've done any of the others, Seuss, you need to get off my comet here. This one is just used with a shopping bag and some aluminum foil. You make a ball out of the foil, you cut up the bag the way the directions say, very easy. And then it talks about tying the foil up in the tip of the bag. I just used a twist tie. They mention a couple other things you can use. And then trying to throw it and seeing how it will go and the way the tail flashes out behind it. So that was the craft for this one. There's another site you can go to. There was a site that Emily Arnold McCulley used in writing the book. You can visit the Herschel Museum of Astronomy online, and that has many other links. It's kind of like the one up top, but a little bit different. At the site, you can click on more pictures of her. A lot of places seem to have a sketch that looked like this, but this one site had a few more pictures that I didn't find anywhere else. You can check out NASA's page on women in space, and that is current with amazing things that women are doing right now in the space case. Let's try this outer space word search that is in the packet. All kinds of cool words to find. Then there is a kids page where you can learn more about comets, and there is a crossword puzzle you can do about comets. And words that you use to answer it are down at the bottom. You can see a picture of a comet that Caroline discovered. She discovered several, but that is a picture of one. And maybe you can play some online space games from NASA's site. They're all online, so you can't print those ones out, but you can do them if your mom or dad says it's okay and you have access to a computer. So there's a whole bunch of activities to keep you busy. Hopefully you can do the crossword puzzle, maybe a little help from an adult. If there's one you don't know, skip it and go to the next one. And maybe you can do it by counting how many spaces there are in that answer, that's how many letters there are in the word, and it has to be a word that has that many letters. And once you get a certain number of them filled in, then you get letters from other words, and you can see, oh, the third letter of that word is whatever it is, and you can go down and find the one that works. So you can kind of work backwards and then go back and read the answers and learn what the answers to the questions were based on what you filled in the puzzle. So all kinds of stuff to do to celebrate Caroline's comets and as well as her brother's contributions to space. So thank you for joining me here on this Superheroes of STEAM episode. And we will be doing another week or two to celebrate Women's History Month in the month of March. We're going to get off the space theme now and do something a little bit different. So stay tuned to find out what that is. And in the meantime, remember you can always come and visit Shaler Public Library. We are open 6 days of the week, only closed on Sunday, but check the website for the hours. You are welcome to come in and pick out more books about comets or space or anything else that you want to get a book about. If you're not comfortable coming into the library, we're certainly happy to still fill your requests for you and bring them to our pickup window. But if you want to come in and browse for yourself, you're more than welcome to do so. We look forward to seeing you. We miss seeing everybody. So, take care. Thanks for watching. This has been Miss Kathy and Seuss, who is off camera now, but is still contentedly laying here. And we will see you back at the next Superhero of STEAM episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.